For my last pre-finale video, I'm going to lay out my prediction for how the finale will go, using primarily clips and screenshots from the trailers and teasers. To clarify, I have no advanced knowledge of the finale, this is entirely conjecture and it could be completely wrong. But I could also do an entire video collecting all the evidence pointing towards this theory I'm about to lay out, and it's the same theory I've been hawking since the end of Season 1. The episode opens with a flashback scene of Ford and Bernard building a host. We see only the skeleton at this point, accompanied by some poignant dialogue about self or a new species or something similar, or maybe a quote from the Aeneid. Cut to Bernard buggying through the desert on his way to the valley, then walking the last leg. Cue the opening credits. Dolores finds William where we saw him last, but his arm is all cut up and gross. We might learn at this moment whether he's a host or not, but probably not till later. I lean very, very heavily towards him being human, but as we'll see, in the end it won't matter either way. Realizing they're heading in the same direction and are both still numb from just losing loved ones, they ride out together for the valley. Cut to the future time, where Charlotte, Strand, and company are riding boats out to the valley. Then back to the main timeline. Bernard arrives at the entrance to the valley as a different buggy pulls up and a QA guy pulls a gun on him. Bernard may kill the guy, but I believe Dolores and William will arrive just in time to take the guy out. The three will briefly discuss what they each intend to do in the forge, and when William hears that Dolores doesn't intend to destroy it, he fires on her. The problem is that his gun has been coded to not hurt Dolores or Bernard, so he's helpless, and they knock him out and leave him outside while they head in. Meanwhile, Maeve busts out of the mesa courtesy of her animal army, reuniting with her posse and killing Roland the creepy butcher. Stubbs and Hale are fine, they're focused on riding out with Clementine to the valley. Cut back to the flashback of Ford and Bernard making the host. Now it has musculature, but we still can't tell who it is. More deep dialogues and literary quotes. Ghost Nation is driving a long line of hosts, and probably human guests and staff, to the valley. Inside the valley, Dolores and Bernard tour the facility, learning that it isn't just a giant server farm of human minds and host backups, it's a clone host factory, thus the reason it's called the Forge. Dolores intends to do one of the following. A. Build a giant army. B. Hold the Delos board mines hostage. If this is where the real Delos board is stored, which means Charlotte has been interfacing with the Forge all season, interacting with the stored versions of her mind and the rest of the board's minds. C. Create clone hosts of former real humans so she and the other hosts can transfer their control units into those clone host bodies and escape the park posing as surviving guests. As we'll see later, it doesn't actually matter which one is her intention. She and Bernard jack into the Forge because she entices him and us with answers to his big questions, despite his disagreement with her plan. Inside the Forge, they witness the entire process of the Forge, including testing minds in Sweetwater similar to the Cradle, tweaking specific behaviors in tiny little cells, and performing full digital fidelity tests. We likely also learn that the Dolores-Bernard fidelity tests we saw earlier in the season were not this Dolores and Bernard, but their Forge counterparts, meaning Forge Bernard is more Arnold-like than our Bernard, so maybe he'll give some insight or cryptic tidbit for Season 3. While in the Forge, Dolores and Bernard will also encounter their Charon-like tour guide, Logan. As he'll show us, he degraded rapidly after being pushed out by William, so he volunteered to be the first subject of the Protagoras project to help gain his father's approval. It screwed him up even worse, however, and he was dismissed as weak by his father. He shows Dolores and Bernard that the Delos board has regularly uploaded their most current memories to the Forge, and their mind copies in the Forge are the secret entity that Charlotte has been communicating with all season, functioning as the actual leadership of Delos, while their human counterparts do whatever the hell they want. That's why they don't care about anyone's life over the Peter Abernathy chip. They're already immortal data that can wait until the cognitive plateau is conquered. Logan takes Bernard and Dolores to the library, the digital interface for reading each of the stored minds. Dolores takes particular interest in William's book, and Bernard probably peruses Ford's. Between the two, Bernard realizes the horrible potential of what the Forge could do, and reaffirms that he needs to destroy this place. They both log out of the Forge and battle over whether to destroy the valley or crank up the clone host assembly line. Dolores manages to get it rolling and tries to convince Bernard one last time to join her cause.
You woke me from a dream, Bernard. We will win.
This isn't a dream. It's a fucking nightmare.
He shoots her. Knowing that he needs to destroy the facility, but not sure how, he is greeted once again by Ford in his brain. Ford guides him through several steps, including turning on a few machines outside of the facility. We'll get back to that later. Meanwhile, William has woken up and made his way into the facility. He has a confrontation with a Ford-controlled Emily host, and she reveals that the one he shot was also a host. The door is about William choosing to either die forever or to be reborn as a host. Regardless of William's choice, he is brought back as a host. Ghost Nation have gathered all the hosts and captives near the valley, and Maeve joins them as well. Using either some Ghost Nation ritual or Maeve flexing her Jedi powers, it appears as if a Terran reality is forming in the center of the valley. It must be the door! What they don't know is that it's a simple hologram triggered by Bernard at Ford's direction, using those machines outside of the valley. It's intended as a distraction and a beacon to guide all other hosts to it, like moths to a flame. As everyone turns their attention to it, Clementine and the Delos forces barrel towards the valley. When Clementine gets close enough, her death virus triggers the entire population of hosts to start killing each other. Maeve tries to stop it and tells Hector to run, to no avail. Several beloved characters are killed. Bernard exits the facility as the flood begins, being one of the only, maybe the only person to escape the flood, since the hosts wiped each other out. Bernard wanders through an empty Westworld for days, shocked by all the death he's encountered. Feeling completely alone and helpless, he finally lays down on the beach where we found him at the beginning of the season. Then we get a supercut of all the Strand, Stubbs, future timeline stuff catching us up. The group has made it into the facility to look for Abernathy's control unit and find that despite the flooding, the forge is still completely functional. Bernard sees something and freaks out, then has one of his patented shaky hand blackout scene switches. And we're back in the Mesa? Bernard watches Delos board members and guests getting on the trains and leaving. The Mesa completely clean and functioning normally, and everything totally okay? He starts to panic, thinking he's having another cognitive dissonance time jump. When he freaks out, everything freezes. All of the guests and Delos employees alike. It's that moment with Logan and Angela all over again, but on a massive scale. Everyone who was in the park during the gala, employee, guest, board member, has been replaced with an unwitting clone host, under the control of Ford, who speaks through all of them to Bernard. Ford tells Bernard that now everyone is free. Things are back to the way they should be, and they can continue their work in perpetuity. The hosts resume what they were doing, unaware that Ford is in control of them. Bernard looks horrified, and we see flashbacks of the moments when the major characters were replaced. Stubbs and Emily under the Ghost Nation, Hale when she got back to the Mesa, etc. The hosts we lost this season are almost all back, since they had extra backups in the Forge, and are rolled back to their likable Season 1 selves. Only Bernard, and hopefully Maeve somehow, are aware of the horrible secret. Roll credits. See you in 2020. If this turns out to be true, I'll make another video showing all the evidence and foreshadowing for the clone host theory throughout Season 1 and Season 2. Thanks for watching, and regardless of what happens, have a great finale.